Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar, and I have with me one of my favorite art. Of course, my daughter happens to come in
Hi,
at the.
sweetie. What's your name?
Alicia.
Alicia. How old are you, Alicia?
9.
You know what? My daughter's now 10, but if she was 9, she would be running in here right now, too.
Are you feeding the doggy?
Yeah,
Okay.
here's his dog bowl.
Oh, yes, that's what
Oh my
Mr.
God, you have a
Adams
big
wanted to say.
dog.
Yeah, he is a big dog. All right, you go feed him.
Good luck.
All right, Alicia trying to steal my job.
I think it's done.
So thank you so much for joining us, Arthur Adams. Man, it's a pleasure to have you on here. You're
Happy
one of
to
my
be here.
one of my favorite artists. I was just telling you before we got this started, like many people, we had your poster on our walls, man. Like your classic X-Men poster stayed on my wall for at least a decade before I moved away from home.
Well past when it was cool to have it on the wall.
Not true. Everything is retro now, so I would love to have something like that again.
Well, sure, there's that. Yeah.
But your artwork on Long Shot, and I'll never forget those 2 issues of X Factor you did.
Oh.
Cloak and Dagger, the Batman and Superman issues. There were a lot of. I remember when I tried to fool myself into thinking I could draw one day comic books. I was trying to mimic your art style because I loved it. I thought it was a perfect mix of this classic style, the big superhero chins, mixed with like the things that I was into, like manga and anime, and with this beautiful Western finish to it. I loved it. It's phenomenal, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So
I showed up at a good time.
You did, and you helped create the new Fantastic Four, man.
I did. I was very lucky. I mean, it would have been created whether I had drawn it or not. I'm sure Walter would have found some other lucky guy to have drawn that book, but I'm very glad that he asked me to draw it because it's one of the most fun jobs I've ever done.
Yeah, and those characters show up from time to time. We still have.
They do. It's funny. They keep bringing them back. I've not really seen one that was. And I have not seen all of them, and I've only glanced at the few that I have seen, but none of them are quite as fun as the one Walter and I did. But it had the benefit of being the first.
Oh, man. Yeah. I remember, like, the Fantastic Four are dead. Now Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk are the new Fantastic Four.
And it was before the internet and all that, and lots of the stuff we have now. So it was one of those times when people could pick up the book and go, oh, crap, the Fantastic Four are dead.
Well, and on top of that, okay, so I have to ask, who was the big kaiju fan? Was it you or Walter?
Walter likes giant monsters, but I was basically raised by giant monsters, so I have an unnatural love of big rubber suit monsters and stop motion monsters and cartoon monsters. I just like monsters.
I kind of figured you doing a lot of the Godzilla covers and things like that, so I kind of figured you might have a big heart for those characters. So how did this journey start for you? How did Arthur Adams? What a name, right? Like you were just born. Like the first part of your name is.
I was either had to be an artist or the King of England. It was one of those, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
I didn't have much choice.
How did you? When did you first?
I guess artist was the easier choice. Well, the thing that got me really excited about being involved in art in any way. I mean, it was kind of a process, but it started out. I just loved dinosaurs. And so I was very interested in trying to draw the dinosaurs I had in my various dinosaur books. So I was trying to draw like Charles Knight and other artists whose names I can't think of at the moment. Mm-hmm. But then I saw King Kong and got super into that. So I was drawing King Kong, and I used to, when I was a little kid, they used to sell Aurora monster models. So I would get those because not only did I love King Kong, but I loved Frankenstein and Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And of course King Kong and Godzilla. But King Kong, I think it must have been Famous Monsters of Filmland. Mm-hmm. Had a big chunk of an issue showing not only pictures from the movies from King Kong and Son of Kong, but a lot of the production drawings and a lot of the model making. So I thought at that point, and this is when I'm probably like 8, 8 years old, in that range.
So you're younger than my daughter that just showed up to show you the food bowl.
I mean, I've always drawn. I've drawn since I was 3 years old. I only ever stopped drawing 1 year. I'll get to that momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was 3, I was drawing, and then so I saw that issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland, and I said, well, this is a way I could pursue my art. Like, at first I thought maybe I'd be paleontologist, but that seems like a lot of work. It's not sitting around and drawing like I already do. So then I learned about production art, and I tried making my own models or sculpting my own monsters, and I was drawing them all the time. And then I found comics. My dad brought home a couple of comics featuring lots of Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, and they had Hulk and the Thing, and those are monsters, right? So I could really get into those guys, and through Hulk and the Thing, we got into the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, and just fell in love with comics.
Do you remember your first comic, or the one that hooked you, the one that you said, "Man, this is really cool"?
I don't remember the first actual comic book, because I'm sure I must have had other comics before these.
Mm-hmm.
And also my dad knew I was super into the I wasn't a child during the golden age of newspaper strips when they were a big chunk of a newspaper, but I was young enough that there was a big chunk of the newspaper strip that was still comics. So it'd be like about a half page of Prince Valiant, a half page of I don't know, all kinds of other stuff. Alley-oop. Was Alley-oop? Might have been Alley-oop. I forget now. But there was just tons of. I just was super into the newspaper strips of the day. And so my dad knew I was really into that. So the two comics I remember the most clearly coming home was Marvel two Treasury editions from Marvel.
Oh.
One was a holiday grab bag, which had the Avengers teamed up with the Fantastic Four to fight the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a whole bunch right there. A beautiful Gene Colan Black Widow story. Ross Andrews, Spider-Man and the Human Torch reprint of Marvel Team Up #1. And also in that one, that one also had a Wally Wood Daredevil versus Submariner. So it was a really beautiful, really nice collection of really fun comics. And then so he got the holiday grab bag and also the Spectacular Spider-Man, which, as I recall, had the first battle of Spider-Man versus the Sinister Six. Very nice.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah. What else was in that book? I think there was also the Lizard, the first appearance of the Lizard, and maybe the first appearance of the Molten Man. Probably not the Molten Man. I can't remember now. Could have been the Molten Man. Either way, it was a really beautiful book, and I remember I was young enough that I was irritated with Steve Ditko because he had drawn Spider-Man in some panels. And granted, this was the Treasury edition was printed much bigger than regular comics.
Yeah.
So bigger than Ditko knew they were going to be printed. So there's several panels where Spider-Man's webs weren't drawn on his costume. So I found found a ballpoint pen to fix that for Mr. Ditko. I'm sure he appreciated that far, far away.
Do you still have that?
Oh no.
I love.
I don't even know where it is. I don't know why I would not have it, because that's certainly one of the kind of things I would keep. But I've since replaced multiples of those because I just read the crap out of them. They were falling apart. So
you decided to pursue a career in this then because of the webbing. You were like, I can do this. I can get paid.
Well, that was probably my first attempt at drawing some of those characters, sure. But no, the book because I was still then thinking that I would probably go to Hollywood to do special effects or production work. Then I think I was, I don't know how old I was when the first issue of Micronauts came out, but I got the very first issue of Michael Golden's Micronauts.
Yeah.
And that just set the fire. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to draw comics. I'm not even absolutely sure what it is about that issue, because I was crazy for Michael Golden's artwork, but Michael Golden's artwork from issue 1 of Micronauts up to issue 6 changed dramatically. Like, could have been completely two different artists, but I totally loved both. But certainly by the time I was starting to draw more seriously, I was much more trying to emulate the Michael Golden of Micronauts #6 forward. And
So
also Walter Simonson was a huge influence. I was looking. I was crazy for Walter's X-Men Teen Titans book, and he had done some like one particular issue of Battlestar Galactica that I thought was like the greatest thing ever. So I was super into Walter and to Mike Golden.
So okay, that's what I was going to ask about, like some influence, because it's interesting. I mentioned this earlier about it's being a kid that grew up watching anime, reading manga, reading comics. So to find artists such as you and Michael Golden, I remember both of you were the first that I was like, I wonder if they like the same things I like, maybe.
Yeah.
So now it kind of went all over the place. Like it's no surprise that so many of these artists were influenced by anime these
Certainly
days.
at the time, like when I was starting, or when I was like, a lot of the cartoons that influenced a lot of guys not much younger than me, but I kind of stopped watching cartoons because I thought I was supposed to. I thought I was supposed to reach an age where I didn't really watch cartoons. So I kind of stopped watching cartoons right at the beginning of things like Transformers and He-Man and those, because I thought they were ugly. I didn't think like they were like when I was a kid I liked Super Friends because they were those characters that I loved. But I recognized that the animation wasn't always that great. And so I thought He-Man and some of the others were also not very good. But I recognized that people still liked them. They just weren't for me.
So, okay, you mentioned Walter Simonson, and I remember as a kid walking up to it was a pharmacy where I found this copy of the Superman annual #1, the Action Comics annual #1. And I saw the cover and I thought, even as a kid, I was like, oh, I know my artist.
Yeah.
I was like, that's Walter Simonson. And I remember picking it up.
Yeah.
And it was your artwork. And I think that was the first time I saw your artwork, because I couldn't get my hand on long shots or those annuals like Uncanny X-Men Annual 9 and 10. Because the local comic store didn't show up in the little town in Kentucky I grew up in until a couple of years after that. But that was the first time I saw your art, and I was like, I really like this guy's art. Like, I don't know who this Arthur Adams guy is, but I really like his big chins and his big superhero.
That's a funny one. Yeah.
So
that was a funny one, because I definitely have mixed feelings about that book, partly because of real life stuff. I think I was about halfway through it, and my girlfriend of the time broke up with me.
Oh man!
Mostly I remember the discomfort of that. But I also remember I felt, and looking at it now, I think I was quite crippled by how overwhelming Frank Miller's Dark Knight had been. That I think that was a huge influence all over the place, and I think I let it be too big of an influence on my own work when I did that. So there's that. But then the fun part of that is that that the editor on the book at that time, Mike Carlin, would call me up every couple of days. Well, number one, he'd call and say, yeah, Art, I'm sorry your girlfriend dumped you, but I need the books to get to work. And then number two, he'd say, hey, you're making Superman's chin a little too big. Could you cut back on that? And I would make it bigger on purpose.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought it was big. I loved it.
I got carried away. Yeah. I think Dick Giordano, who inked it, might have trimmed back some of the chins, but I was drawing some pretty big damn chins.
So how did you first get published? For anybody not familiar with your work, I don't think there's that many people out there that aren't, but how did you first get found? Like, was it something you just sent out submissions to different companies?
Yeah, I just sent submissions. I'd actually had sent a bunch of I had got lucky and had inker Joseph Rubenstein take some of my copies to Marvel and showed him around, and I got a job from Denny O'Neil.
Wow.
Who said, hey, what do you want to do? This is for our book, Bizarre Adventures. You want to write and draw something? I said, that was not my plan. That was not my planned course of career, but sure, I'll give it a try. So I wrote a little, like, just a stupid little 3-page story, and I penciled it, and Joe inked it. and then they turned it in, it got turned in, and I was all excited. I called up. I think he didn't want to talk to me. I think his assistant talked to me, Linda Grant, and she basically said, "Oh, don't bother calling us. We'll call you if we have more work for you." So I don't think they really cared for that first job very much.
Oh, wow.
Over the course of the year after that, I spent time doing more samples. And then I sent those all to Marvel and DC, and I sent those in. So I drew that first one. I was probably just about 18. I was either 17 or 18. And so I spent the year doing more samples, and I sent those in to Marvel and DC. And fortunately, Ann Nocenti and Al Milgram and Carl Potts were going through a stack of submissions, and they saw mine and said, "Hey, maybe this guy could do something." So they gave me some tryouts. I drew some tryouts on some Defenders script, as I recall. And they liked what I did. They thought there was one bit where I was drawing the Beast and someone else doing dishes. It might have been the Vision, and Annie thought I drew that funny, so she liked it.
So then that's how you all got together for what would become Longshot.
Pretty much, yeah. I think Annie had made up the character of Longshot maybe almost a year before I came in. I seem to remember that being the story. She could tell you a lot better than I could.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. She's nuts. Who knows? Hi, Annie. She had the script or the plot, and maybe the script for the first issue for Longshot, and apparently she'd shown it. The story she told me is she'd shown it to absolutely everybody, and they all said, "This is stupid. I don't want to draw it." And I read it and said, "I will do anything to draw comics. I will draw this. I would have drawn that. If they'd offered me an issue of G.I. Joe or Transformers, I would have drawn those. I just wanted to draw comics."
Even though you thought the animation was stupid on Transformers.
I didn't care for it. I wanted the job.
But Larry Hama's G.I. Joe was phenomenal. And honestly, Transformers...
A lot of people loved it. Because when I was a kid, G.I. Joe was a 12-inch figure.
Yeah.
With 12-inch stuff to go with the figure. So when they started making the little 3-inch figures, I didn't quite know what to do with that. I mean, I knew enough about the toy business that I knew why they were doing it, but I wasn't crazy about it. But so no, it's amazing that Larry was able to do what he did with it.
And Transformers. Do you know what I would give to see Arthur Adams draw Transformers? Oh my gosh, dude!
I think when I was 17 or 18, I was visiting one of the inkers. I won't name him because I don't want to. Because, well, he was the issue was turned in late to him, so he needed a lot of help. So I think Mike Mignola inked a page, and I inked a page, and I did a terrible job. Can't remember what issue it was. I just remember that the actual inker on the job was not very happy with me.
Oh, so you were getting work then, and then they were giving you annuals. I remember a lot of the annuals that you drew.
So I drew the first 6 issues of Longshot, and Chris, because Chris, this was the old offices. Chris was in the offices all the time. Partly he was there to talk with his editors, plot new jobs, because he was writing. Yeah, a lot. When I came, he was probably writing 3, 4, 5 books a month, right? So yeah, he was always in there, and he would always, because he's a nosy and a smart guy, he was always looking at the artwork as it was coming in. And so if he saw some other artwork that he thought was good, he'd go, "Hey, can that guy draw something for me?" And so I got lucky. He saw some of my pages and said, and got me to do the follow-up. I imagine they must have wanted Paul to do the New Mutants annual or the New Mutants special and the X-Men annual. So I don't know why he didn't do it. I've never had a chance to ask him.
That's right, because he did the
first two
Alpha Flight and X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no offense to Paul Smith. I love Paul Smith too.
Yeah.
But
Paul's great.
That Asgardian Storm, I mean, that is an iconic cover. Your designs on, like I told you, I really started drawing a lot of, or copying your artwork, like to practice, and I was baffled by how much detail you would put into your work, and it was insane, the amount of just detail. So how did that affect you? Because you did annuals. Did you ever want to do a monthly series?
Oh, I've always wanted to do a monthly. I still want to do a monthly. It's all of the detail and the extra stuff is mostly my lack of confidence in my artwork. So I'm partly trying to hide stuff with bright shiny glitter. Just trying to make things like, oh gosh, that's really complicated. So I mean, at some point, it became more of a conscious decision that there's lots of guys who are going, or there's several guys going with a very stark style. So I'll go the opposite way. I'll be different, right? I'll do something that no one else is doing, and not, of course, that no one else is doing, but that fewer people are doing.
Fewer people are doing. All right. Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense to do it. It's stupid. But I also know it was funny. I would visit Mike Mignola's apartment. We used to live in the same apartment building. And we would take almost the exact same amount of time drawing a page, except he would spend, I'd spend a day adding in extra crap, and he'd spend a day removing extra crap to make it, as black and white and as solid as possible. And I was going with all the lace and the trimmings.
So how did work come to you then? Like, if you could, would you seek after a certain series or characters, or did you just take whatever? Like, was there a character?
I've been super lucky. I've been super lucky since I started. When I finally got hired and I was 19, I've never really had to ask for a job. There's just always been people offering. I've kind of hinted at jobs that I might want and have gotten those on some occasions, and other occasions not, because if anything, I've proven over the last almost 4 decades I'm not the most reliable guy on deadlines. And fortunately, there's some people realize they actually have to make this a business.
I love them. I love your covers. So is that mainly what you're sticking to these days?
It's mainly what I'm doing right now. I actually am doing some interior work. It hasn't been announced yet, so I don't want to share that. But I'm in the process of. I'm just going to do a handful of more. I'm going to be cutting back drastically on doing covers, and then try to concentrate on doing, if not just this project, then some of my own projects, because I would like to do some. I would like to finally be a real live comic book artist.
A real life car. I think you've achieved that, man.
Arguably.
Well, I mean, from over here, it seems like absolutely you are a true comic book artist.
I guess that's how we pay our mortgage, so it counts.
So tell me a little bit about this Indiegogo that you've got going with Dynamite. I'm fortunate that Dynamite and Nick Barucci over there wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. I've always really liked Red Sonja since it's one of the comics when I really got into comics, when I was going in and buying my pile of comics with my saved lunch money. I would I would ask my mom every day for lunch money, and I would secretly pack a lunch so that I could have a handful of money. Okay. I was doing drawings at school, and I would occasionally sell those for like $1 or $2 at school. And that worked out because comics back then were 25 cents or 30 cents, right? So yeah, when the prices started going up, that was rough on my lunch money. Fortunately, I made more money as time went by. So I would buy the Frank Thorne Red Sonja at my dad was in the Air Force, so I'd go to the local PX where I knew they had a really good comic book collection. I don't know. I guess the Air Force guys were just really into comics. That's how my dad would bring me home some comics, and my mom would go to the thrift shop on the air base, and guys who were just shipping out would not want to bring their piles of comics, so they would leave hay bales of comics at the thrift shop. And so my mom would pick up this 10-20 pound brick of comics for $10 or something like that, and just throw them to us kids. Might even have just been $1. Couldn't have been $10 because we didn't have that much money. But she would just bring home this big pile of comics for us kids to go through. And of course, Red Sonja wasn't in that. But so I was going to the PX, and that was one of the comics I would pick up. And I always felt like I was doing something a little bit naughty because I was buying this woman who was wearing this weird bikini and yelled a lot. She had a sword though, so that
He had a sword.
goes a
Yeah, I
long
mean,
way.
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, who doesn't have a sword, right?
I mean,
Yes, that's true. She did have a sword.
so then, how did you become involved with this then? With
Oh,
drawing?
just okay. I think Nick reached out to us and to my wife Joyce Chen,
Mhm.
who's also involved in the Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Although I think we should start something called Wendigogo, because that sounds. I like Wendigogo better than Indiegogo personally.
Mm-hmm. There
Just
might be
very,
a trademark with that, but
yeah.
I don't
Who
know.
knows? Who knows? I mean, yeah. As long as we don't sell burgers or something, maybe if we just sell human flesh, Wendigo go. That's probably a good idea. So no, I've just always loved Red Sonja, and he asked if we wanted to be involved in this, and we said as long as you guarantee us that we'll make tens of thousands of dollars, and he laughed, and so I don't. It seems like it's going pretty well so far, and if it goes well enough, I hope we can do some more, because one of the things I love doing is cover recreations, and I have like a bunch of those old Red Sonjas that I love, that I wouldn't mind. And she's a character I like, so I wouldn't mind drawing more of her and getting paid well to do it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
By the way, the Indiegogo, the link is in the description of this video if you want to go and help get that funded. So I think there's 9 days left. Looks like you guys are doing really well too.
I think it's going okay. I've not examined what others have done. I imagine we're probably middle of the field on that, mostly because I don't know how to push it. I'm doing that right now. Hey, everyone.
You came here
right now.
You came here,
yeah,
and
there we
this
go.
is what we're talking about. You know,
right.
This is how
so
it's
if
done.
I make any extra money, I owe you.
We'll talk about that afterwards.
Fair.
Or a classic X-Men sketch. Classic X-Men. Man, that poster, seriously. Wall.
You can get Nick to do you a classic X-Men drawing.
Is that how this works?
Yes, Nick will do it for you. He promised me before we got here. Yes.
I love it. I love to see you guys still out there, man. I love the fact that everybody recognizes your names too. Like, because I think, like a lot of people my age, people that started reading comics at a young age, I quit reading for a while, and then I came back. And when I came back, I started looking for my favorite artists. I will say this: you were the first artist that I remember following.
It's just because my name starts with the letter A. Come on.
No, that's nonsense.
That's why you were going alphabetical. You know this.
And I wasn't, and I don't mean stalking, like following. I mean, I was following you. I bought every issue, every cover you did. Luckily, a comic book store did come, and this is long before variant covers. I was just following everything you were doing to your creator-owned stuff, Monkey Man O'Brien, all that stuff. I was a big fan of your work, and it got me to follow. And that's what the Image guys ended up doing. The Image guys ended up saying people are going to follow our work, and their work hits like me.
No, I think that's true. And I mean, that's kind of how I got to be at some point. That I realized, like early on, I was just following the books the characters I liked. Like I just wanted to follow the Hulk and the Fantastic Four, maybe Spider-Man, definitely Conan and Red Sonja, and then any monster stuff like Man Thing or Werewolf by Night or stuff like that. And then occasional dashes. Like I think one of my favorite books to get especially when I was a kid, two of my favorites were Marvel 2-in-1 and Marvel Team Up, because it guaranteed me a character I liked, either Spider-Man or the Thing, meeting some other Marvel characters. That got me a better idea of like the Marvel universe.
Is there any characters you want to draw? Like any new characters?
I've drawn almost all of them now.
I know.
For Marvel and DC, I mean, there's new iterations of them, and some I like better than others. But mostly, and I mean, I like a lot of those old characters, but I'm kind of at the point I can draw those anytime, and make that financially feasible. So that's part of what's got me thinking it's time I should concentrate more on my own stuff.
Oh, more of your own stuff, huh?
Yeah, I think I should.
Man, I can't wait to see what you've got in mind.
Me too.
You can't wait to see what you've got in mind. So, is there a favorite story that you've drawn that you're proud of that you could say, man, this is Arthur Adams? Like, this is everything.
Oh,
you can show somebody.
I think those Fantastic Fours came up pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with those.
Yeah, those were all.
It's one of those things. I think maybe 3 issues. I think we could have stretched it to 4 issues, maybe expanded on the imagery a little bit. But
Oh, you totally could have. Yes, 100%.
yeah, so I think we could have gone 4, but I don't think it would have been a 6-issue story. I don't think that would have worked. I like it being nice, a nice tight story. I think the Gumby comics I did are fun. I still like those. Actually the Action Comics annual, like it's one of those I look at now and I think I could do that better now than I did then. And I mean, there's bits of Long Shot I think I could do better now. But I mean, I was super fortunate on that book because Louise Simonson was the editor and she was kind of freelance editing, which is not to disparage anything that she did. This is not at all disparaging. I'm saying I've greatly appreciated it. She was pretty hands off with Annie and I. Like we was super hands on like for my first issue, and she really helped focus my storytelling like a huge amount. She and one of the fellows who used to work there at Marvel Comics, a fellow named Elliot Brown. Like I did the layouts for the very first issue of Long Shot, and basically they went over everything and said, okay, here's how you can make this all better. So basically I drew the first issue almost twice because the first issue was just so ridiculous because Annie asked for lots of stuff to be happening, and I was just starting, so I would draw every individual action in a tiny panel, and they kind of helped me understand I can draw one big panel and have more than one thing happening in that panel, right?
Yeah.
That really helped focus my storytelling. But from then on, after that, because I was drawing it so slowly, I think I took 8 months to almost a year to draw the first issue. Fortunately, the book wasn't on the schedule, so no one was terribly worried about it. So I think I ended up taking almost 2 years to draw all 6 of those issues. So anyway, so what that meant was that Annie would write these super dense scripts, and I'd do the layouts for it. And every comic, even at that time, was still supposed to be 20 or 22 pages. And I would do the layouts and say, well, I need this to be 23 pages. I need this one to be 24 pages. I need this one to be 26 pages. And they just let me. And I don't even know why they let me, but apparently they got in trouble for it because part of the way comics made money in those days is they sold ad space. So every page for a page, that meant an ad wasn't going in. So eventually so that's why I think the last issue is double sized, because the story was really dense, but they still needed some ad pages to pay for the stuff, right?
Right. So I guess people didn't think about that.
So basically, I was super fortunate on like those first 6 issues because they were Wheezy and Elliot and Annie were super educational to me, helped me learn a great deal, and they also gave me space to learn how to do it and trusted me to say, like, when I told them that I could not do this story in 22 pages, I needed at least 1 or 2 more pages. They trusted me with that, and I think it worked out pretty well. So I think that's also one of the things about why my stuff kind of made more impact, because my first 6 comics had more pages than most other comics.
but I mean, don't sell yourself short. Your art really stood out. Like, it was unique at the time. I remember your artwork was so unique. You were a big inspiration for a lot of artists. You were doing things, that, like I said, eventually I think most artists drew heavily from anime and video games.
But I'm part of, like, I'm not not the second generation that came to Marvel, like maybe like the third or fourth that was super influenced. Like a lot of the earlier generations have been influenced by newspaper strips. And then the next bunch were coming in were really influenced by Kirby and Ditko. And I was coming in, I'd been influenced by Kirby and Ditko, but also by Gil Kane and Bernie Wrights and Mike Kaluta and Walter Simonson. Barry Smith was a huge influence, and Walter and a bunch of others. Like, one of my biggest artistic influences that I don't mention enough was Terry Austin, because there's a lot of books that I liked that I realized I didn't like the artist if Terry didn't ink them. That's part of where I understood that Terry brought a lot to not only did his style of inking, but the things he added, like the little details he added in the background, like weird little bits of graffiti. Like Terry, if he was inking layouts from somebody, he would do a lot of extra drawing in there. and I really liked what he did, and so that was a big influence on my work.
He is one of my favorite inkers of all time.
So a lot of the people that were influenced by me were influenced by me, but they were also influenced by the people who influenced me. And even as I was working on Longshot, I was looking at the comic book Akira, Otomo. I was looking at Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell by
you naming some good manga there.
Yeah. So I was looking at lots of stuff. So I appreciate that people influenced by me, but I also don't want to. I wanted to be clear that I was very influenced by a lot of people.
I think obviously, I mean, it's definitely a case of art inspired by art.
Oh, totally.
100%.
And even like I was saying, like even that first generation of comic book artists, a lot of them wanted to be newspaper strip artists. So a lot of them were very influenced by the very popular artists of those times.
Well, I will say this though. I remember when I first saw Joe Mad's artwork, Joe Madureira.
Sure.
And it was in issues of Marvel Comics Presents, and then issues of Excalibur.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny is, I thought it was you drawing a cover to Excalibur 57, I think, and it was this new kid, and he definitely had an Arthur Adams style. So much so that he used the character, and I'm sure this was all the editors, right? That you previously drew in issues of X Factor, those 2 issues of X Factor. You drew.
Oh, I had no idea. I didn't know that. No, I had.
Yeah, you drew a character named Alchemy.
Yeah. No, I had no idea he'd ever appeared again.
He did. He appeared in 2 issues of Excalibur, and it was Joe Mad that was drawing them. So I was like, and the trolls, they look like your trolls, and
hilarious
facial features.
Yeah,
amazing, man. And then that guy blew up, and
I had no idea. No, there was like
video games,
like right when Todd McFarlane started drawing the Hulk, I think it was. Like I was at home working, and Mike Mignola and Steve Purcell had gone to the comic book shop, and they came back and they brought in this issue of the Hulk, and Mike was just laughing it up. He was like, "Hey Arthur, you can stop drawing now. They hired someone else to do it." Like, well, that's weird, because I was still pretty young at the time, so it was very weird to be influencing new artists. And at that time, I was like, when Todd showed up, I was probably not more than 23, 24. That's
crazy.
So it was really weird to have been so influenced by other artists, then find myself being an influence. And so in my internal monologue was basically like, guys, go look at the stuff I looked at. You don't need to look at me. You're looking at it through a bad filter.
But obviously, I mean, these are the same people that had the same posters I did, and definitely drew inspiration heavily from you. But I think that's also a good thing, though, because you mentioning the things you were inspired by also lets people go and check out those things. So those other people's
I agree.
works.
I think it's important to remember. I think it's important to mention the people that influenced us, because we're all, as others, have said, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So we're making our own pyramid of fun.
Pyramid of fun. I love it.
that went wrong. I meant it to be more inspirational than that. Oh well.
Well, I think it hit here. So
good. Oh, my pancreas.
Where can we see you these days? Where can we see you?
Right here. You're talking to me right here, man.
Where can we see your work these days printed?
I believe I have a handful more covers coming out. I'm working on a whole bunch of more covers for one series, but I don't believe it's been announced from Marvel, so I don't want to be the one to announce it.
Okay.
Gosh, and then I'm doing the interiors on this other book, so I've just designed 2 of the characters in it. I have to design a couple more very quickly, because it's a book that's being done by more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
But right now I'm trying to I have like 3 covers I have to get done by next Wednesday. So basically, you're taking my time, dude.
I know. I'm so sorry. Well, you could be drawing while I'm talking to you.
No, right. It's nice. It's like my studio is a nightmare. So I'm sitting outside with my nice cup of tea, and I got a little hungry before you got here, so I'm having a little bit of chicken breast with hot sauce and some grapefruit.
I didn't know it was a fancy kind of meeting.
The
tea.
I'm not wearing a bib, so.
And we also talked about your Indiegogo you got currently with Dynamite doing the Red Sonja. Is that something? Is that a character you would love to do internal artwork for? Since you mentioned her,
Internal artwork, probably not. Partly because I want all the money.
you want to. Gotcha.
And it's
Gotcha.
one of those. I think it's one of those characters that sells well enough to support itself, but I don't know that it would. Like, don't tell anyone. But
Just
if I was
between us.
going to draw a Red Sonja comic book, I would make up my own Red Sonja.
Okay.
She'd be like Blue Becky or something like that. She would, not be Red Sonja, but she would, be a barbarian lady of some sort.
Not a barbarian lady. Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Barbarian, Blue Becky barbarian lady. I don't think that doesn't sound like a really good one so far, but I think maybe we could workshop it a little bit, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you this though, like I don't think anybody would be coming after you, right? Like not
they wouldn't want to. No, they would they'd see the book and go, "Oh no, we don't need to bother with that." That's no one wants that.
So, who's your favorite creator you've worked with? I know you want to do creator own stuff. Yeah.
I just noticed I have a light streak on my face, so I'm trying to.
There you go.
In the middle. There we go. Perfect. I've been super fortunate. I can't think of anyone who I've worked with who I didn't like. I think I had some uncomfortable experiences with one editor a long time ago, like 25 plus years ago. So not even worth mentioning. And I think he's gone on to have a very happy career. And I think he just wasn't meant to be an editor. Although others may disagree. And it's easy to disagree because I've not said anything.
Right.
But no, I've been very, very lucky. I love Walter. I love Chris Claremont. I love Annie. Very fond of Bob Burden. Very fond. I love Wheezy. Who else have I worked with? I've worked with so many people. I've been very, very fortunate.
You've had you've worked with a lot of awesome talent, man.
Right.
All right.
Oh yeah, I should have done more of it.
Okay, so this is the most important question, though. How did you make your tea in a
microwave?
How
did I make my tea? Well, I have it's a nice cup of Earl Grey, and I made a strainer. I don't because I don't like leaving it. If I make a teapot, I'm kind of the only one drinking it, and I don't like the tea sitting around. So I like to go ahead and boil my water, pour it in. Get my strainer with my little probably a little too much Earl Grey. It's probably a little stronger than it should be, but I like it that way. I let it steep for my usual 4 minutes because that's a really good amount of time to steep a nice black tea. I like it. Just straight, no milk, no sugar. Sometimes a little bit of lemon is nice, but I don't generally put much in it.
Man, look, James, you weren't expecting that, were you, James?
No one was expecting that.
He wasn't ready for that.
Why would they?
Here's a good question from Fraser. How do you feel about artists who adopt your style so much it's almost a clone? At least one guy comes
to my glasses so I can see these tiny letters.
Sure.
There you go. Man, you know what? You go ahead and keep just telling me. How do I feel about it? I feel fine. I think they can make better choices on who they're influenced by, but no, it's all good. As I said before, I was super influenced by people like Michael Golden, Walter Simonson, and I hope to continue passing on what they did, which was that they knew that I was trying to rip them off, and they were very nice to me.
Art inspiring art, man. That's all it was. All right, people are mentioning Johnny Future. They want more Johnny Future. And what was it like working with Alan Moore?
Johnny Future too. What was it like? Well, I only worked very briefly with Alan Moore. Alan and his friend Steve Moore, same last name, but they're not related. They weren't related at all. So Alan and Steve came up with the character. They described her as looking quite different than I ended up drawing her. I really liked doing those stories. I think I learned a lot. There's things I would probably do differently now. But it's unlikely we'll be doing any more Johnny Future because Steve has passed. Steve is not around anymore. He's left the planet. And I don't think DC probably has any interest in it. So Johnny Future is probably, if I was going to do anything more, it would probably be something like Johnny Future, and I have ideas for that. I just have to sit down and do them.
So it's almost like your Blue Becky.
Exactly, but I've thought about this one slightly more.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I can answer this one, but loved Arthur's variant for cover for Ultraman issue 2.
Haha.
Are you a Tokusatsu fan?
I am. I don't watch absolutely everything because there is so much of it. But I mean, one of the things that I did when I was a little boy, loving monsters so much, is that the original Ultraman series, dubbed in English, but the original Ultraman series would play on one of our local stations when I was a little kid. So I would rush home so I could be home by 3:30 when it was on, so I could make sure I could see every episode. And so I loved the original Ultraman. I have some awareness of the other Ultramans, but I don't have. I have some of the toys and monsters. I've only watched a little bit of Ultra 7, and I've seen bits. Like I watched the American version. Well, not all of it because it wasn't that great, but there was an American version of Ultraman in the 90s, I think it was, and there was an Australian series that I watched all of. That was okay. But I love the original Ultraman very, very much. And I used to watch my ex-girlfriend, one of my ex-girlfriends got me into a character called Kikaider. I'm very fond of Kikaider. I have lots of Kamen Rider toys, but I'm not seeing much Kamen Rider.
Did you say toys?
I have tons of toys. No, I'm not going to take you in the studio. It's maybe next time.
All right. You got yourself a deal.
Here you go.
I can answer this, Gabriel. Has he ever worked with Jeff Loeb? Yeah, they did Red Hulk.
Fair bit. Well, I actually drew the Green Hulk part of 3 issues. I did draw one Red Hulk. There was like a king-sized annual, I think they called it, where I drew 8 pages in that. And then I drew 3 half issues of the Hulk series. My part being the Green Hulk and the back half of the book being Frank Cho's Red Hulk.
Right. Yeah.
And those were super fun. Those were a great deal of fun to do. I'd love to work with Jeff again. He's one of my favorite. He's a good friend, and he's a fun collaborator. He also wrote for me 5 issues of Ultimate X, which was kind of like a attempted redo of the X-Men in the Ultimate Universe. Which was challenging for various reasons, but none of those being Jeff. That was mostly life situation stuff. When I was working on the first issue, my wife was pregnant, and she had a very difficult pregnancy. And then I was working on the next bunch of issues while we had a newborn baby. So that was extra work.
Well, I'm glad everything is okay.
Oh yeah,
Adam's coming in late. He's wondering how Joyce is doing.
Joyce is doing great. Joyce, she's thinking about making some lamb stew. So
hey, that sounds good.
Yeah, that goes. Well, I'm usually the cook at home. I mean, she cooks a bunch, but I mostly cook dinner. But she's decided that she wants to make some lamb stew. So don't know that that's tonight or she's going to work on it tonight. We'll have it tomorrow. We'll see. But she's doing great. Her health is good after she had her brush with mortality 2 years ago. She's doing great.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We all are. So let's see. What's one drawing that you've done that stands out to you? One drawing.
I'm just finished 2 that both companies liked pretty well, so I'm pretty happy about that. And the one I'm working on right now is different than most of my other covers, so it's an interesting challenge. Actually, 3 of the next ones I have coming up are all quite different than my usual thing. So they're all challenges, but they all have to be done quickly, so I don't have time to think about it too much. I don't generally think about things as being my favorite drawing. So most cases, if I look at something, I find, okay, I like the way that part came out, but that other part sucks. Yeah,
I asked
critical.
One of my favorite answers I got was
critical. Yeah.
And that's good though. One of my favorite answers I got was from Chris Claremont when I interviewed him. And I asked, what is his favorite story he ever wrote? And he's like, the one I haven't written yet.
Well, that's often the case. Yeah, I often think that, you know what, the next job I do, I'm going to finally figure out what I'm doing.
What's up, Hablando Comic? How you doing, brother? Oh, this is such an awesome question. What's your favorite dinosaur to draw? Devil Dinosaur, or do you have another
Devil
dinosaur?
Dinosaur is surprisingly difficult because if you draw Devil Dinosaur as just like my natural inclination is to try to draw dinosaurs to look as much as they currently are said to look. So I've been getting a new series of toys from China from a company called PNSO, I think it is. And they make really fantastic dinosaur toys, really excellent. Super impressed with them, and I like every time they come out with a new one, I'm very eager to get it. If you draw Devil Dinosaur like a regular dinosaur, like a real-ish, real Tyrannosaurus, doesn't look right. So I have a lot of trouble drawing Devil Dinosaur to look like Devil Dinosaur because he's doesn't look almost anything like a Tyrannosaurus really supposed to. He's kind of like he's difficult. So favorite dinosaur to draw again. I don't really think I have. I want to say Tyrannosaurus just because that's the usual, but I like all dinosaurs. Don't make me pick a dinosaur. What kind of monster are you?
And speaking of monster, is the creature from the Black Lagoon your favorite Universal monster?
Favorite Universal monster? Maybe. I mean, as someone else pointed out sometime in the past, actually the creature from the Black Lagoon and the return of the creature together are basically a remake of King Kong. They basically are the exact same story, just with a different monster. And, an easier to work with monster for the creature from the Black Lagoon. But of a Universal monster, maybe. I mean, I really love Frankenstein. I love the Wolfman. But you're probably right. It probably is my favorite Universal monster. Yeah. I don't like to be pinned down like this, but you've left me no choice. Your question was too precise.
It was very precise because I mean, it probably has a lot to do with your love of Man-Thing and Swamp Thing, right?
Swamp Thing, and it's also the story of the King Kong story. It's one of the great, like, as most rubber suit monsters look pretty terrible. It is one of the great rubber suits. That one, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, and like the next really good rubber suit monster is probably, and as much as I love various, like Godzilla, some of the Godzillas are pretty amazing, but the next really good rubber monster suit is probably Alien. Then the Predator suits are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But the rubber monster suits are generally not great, especially in the past. They're far better now. There's so many now that you don't even know they're rubber suits. They're so good. But in the past, the rubber suit monsters were generally not really very good.
Does Arthur Adams like manga? I think he does a little bit.
I like my daughter, as I said, she's 10, and so she's super into My Hero Academia right now, which I don't really care for, but there's a couple of it that she's super keen on.
Really like. It's huge. People love that.
It's totally huge. I'm very much enjoying, even though it's gone in a super weird direction, One Punch Man.
My man.
Yeah, One Punch Man's pretty awesome. I also have just recently, like in the last 2-3 years, gotten into Junji Ito his horror comics.
Yeah,
he's really fantastic. So I suppose I do like some manga, yes. And there's others that are not coming to mind right now, but there's others that I like quite a lot.
Well, you mentioned drawing inspiration for some things. You mentioned Appleseed. I love Shiro's work. Shiro is phenomenal, and those books have been long gone out of print.
Are they?
Yeah, I don't know if Dark Horse still owns the rights or not. Hopefully somebody will release them in hardcover format. I know that they don't own the rights to Ghost in the Shell, so I don't know if Appleseed.
I don't know how all that stuff works in Japan, and I know that certainly Shiro's artwork got even naughtier.
Yeah, you could say that.
Got naughtier, so I don't know if that has any influence on how his past work is accepted. But yeah, some of his past work, I mean, I still like even the naughty stuff, even though I can see why that reduces the size of his audience. But yeah, the old stuff is super fun, so I don't know why that would be not available. That's super weird. I wonder if it's a rights situation, either the comic book publisher or whether they sold rights to TV or movies. Who knows?
It usually is, especially with manga.
Yeah.
Any news on Arthur coming back to Conan? Would you? Oh my gosh, that would be awesome.
Let's see. I think I have. We're talking about my doing a cover That's probably about it.
Okay.
Unless you meant Conan O'Brien, and no, probably I don't nothing. I've never been on Conan O'Brien, so I don't know what you're talking about. That's a very strange question.
Idea for your next project: a book of just dinosaur drawings. I'll put it next to the similar tome that I have of William Stout. Hey, dinosaur drawings.
Joyce has been after me to do that, so I probably should do it before I'm dead or after, one of those.
Hey, you got a long time before that happens.
Yeah, one imagines.
Yeah, long time. Yeah. This is from my buddy Gabriel, and he's a really nice guy. He is an autistic comic book fan, and he's wondering what is a good graphic novel to read that you have done.
That I have done.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I'm quite critical of my own work, but I think the Ultimate X comics were very good. They kind of end on a cliffhanger. We thought they would go somewhere with it. I don't think Marvel did. So that might be a bit frustrating to a reader. But I think a lot of the Ultimate X stuff is pretty good. The new Fantastic Four I did with Walter are a lot of fun, and then the New Mutants special and the X-Men annuals that I did with Chris, I think are a lot of fun. I'm working with some folk to bring back, or at least to collect Monkey Man and O'Brien. So if that's available.
Wait,
that's available. Then we can recommend that one.
Wait a minute. Did you say collect?
Just collect the stuff that exists. I may add, if I can find the time, I may add a little more story content. But I'm pretty swamped these days.
No, I'm like, obviously collected editions are my thing. So when you collect, it's happening, huh?
It's been collected in the past, but I mean that one is, I think, long out of print. That's
long
past. It doesn't have absolutely everything in it. So partly we're trying to find everything that we can. There's some stuff that we're having problems locating and getting good copies of. So it's a work in progress, but we're hoping to get enough of it together before the year is out so that we can proceed to making a nice collected package.
Man, we would love to see that. Big fan of that stuff.
And there's another small thing, but again, it's early days in development, so I don't want to share that one. But it's one I'm super excited about. It might involve some plastic. That's all. I'm just gonna leave it right there.
Dude, you said toys. You had me at toys earlier. Does Arthur Adams know who Jack Katz is? I believe he does.
I know who he is. I don't have any memory of having met him, but I know I just inked a pinup page for a book that's coming out from Mr. Katz, but I couldn't tell you when exactly that's coming out. But everything I've seen of it looks like it's a pretty nice collection of stuff.
He's a phenomenal. He's at the First Kingdom. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
Life's work.
Yeah.
Can we please get an IDW artist or gallery edition of any of your work? That is so true. Your work.
It is one of those things that part of the problem is that there's just stuff missing. I know there's they put a bunch of Johnny Future in one of the ABC collections, but part of the problem is getting a hold of some of the stuff. And I know there's one collector who had several of my pages that were lost in a flood. So those are just gone. But it's partly the way I've just dealt with my artwork in the past is that so much of it has been sold to individuals, and it's just really hard to collect, hard to track those people down.
Okay, so there's your answer.
So I would love for that to happen, and hopefully, if I do more stuff, I mean, granted, it won't be the older stuff, but we find it where we can.
So I'm you got me excited about two things, man. It's awesome. Yeah. What new comics is Arthur excited about as a fan?
Let's see. I've been enjoying Ultra Mega, which is kind of a... From
Image. Chuck just said, are you reading Ultra Mega?
Ultra Mega is awesome. Ultra Mega is fantastic. It's one of those things that I think I was on my last Ultraman cover that I just recently did, and then I found Ultra Mega, and I was like, well, crap, I should have done this. So Ultra Mega, I've been enjoying the Beta Ray Bill miniseries.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that's been fun. And I can't think of anything else at the moment. I know I have a pile of other stuff. I just haven't gone through it yet.
This is interesting. I totally forgot about this. With 2 issues of Authority, did you have a favorite team member to draw?
Did I have a favorite team member? Those were fun. I was really disappointed I didn't get to finish the last issue, but that was another one where I got the script. They sent me the script, and I said that I couldn't do it in the page limit they had. They had to give me a couple more pages. And I think when the finished project was done, I think I was right. I think it needed a couple more pages, which was fun. It was just kind of a fun. It was such a different thing, and it was so ultra violent. Something that I'm not really used to doing, and not a way I'm used to working.
Mm-hmm.
But Midnighter was pretty much the focus of those issues that I did. Yeah, I don't know if I had a favorite. Midnighter's the one I drew the most, but the monster, the villain Seth, was a lot of fun to draw. So, I don't know if I did enough of it to have picked a favorite. And generally, I avoid picking favorites because what always happens is if you pick something that's your favorite, then you have to pick your least favorite. And that's the one you end up getting to draw for the rest of your life. That's my theory anyway.
It's a great theory, man. All right. And we'll take a couple more questions because I know you got to eat and draw, apparently. 3 more covers.
I ate a little while earlier because I didn't want to be grouchy for you.
Oh, no. We don't want a grouchy Arthur Adams. That would not be good. Hi, Arthur. Would you team up with Cullen Bunn by doing artwork for a Jimmy Howlett Poison series, since we haven't seen Jimmy since X-Men Blue 35? You did covers for about...
They were fun to do. I like Cullen. I'd be happy to work with him. I don't know that it would be on that. Maybe we could wake up our own Kid Wolverine.
We don't have enough of those.
Badger Boy. No, I think there is already a Badger, isn't there? What would he be? I don't know. Muskrat, something. I don't know.
But I don't think Badger Boy has actually come out, though. So you could...
Well, I mean, there's a comic book called The Badger. But yeah, I guess I'll get something. Mm-hmm. You know what? Hellman. I'll do a comic book called Hellman.
Hey, how about the Gumby Artist Edition, Arthur Adams?
That would be fantastic. I know they wanted to collect some of that. And I think a couple of companies probably have. I know the last people who had the license to it did a collection of it, which was kind of irritated me because they were advertising it as the Arthur Adams collection, and it's not like they ever asked me how I felt about that. So I was a bit irritated about that. But I really liked working with Bob, and I really liked working with Steve on the 2 issues that I did. And I was open to the idea of doing more, but it just never kind of worked out. So it's another situation where I need to make up my own Clay Boy.
Clay Boy, man, you got just ideas leaking out.
I'm just an idea machine. It's shocking, really.
It's amazing how much like somebody is writing all this stuff down, and they're gonna beat me to it, man.
That's probably, I'm just giving it away. It's sad, really.
There was a funny question here. I'm trying to find it. Okay, here it is from Keith. Has Arthur responded to Dennis Cohen's one-on-one basketball challenge? He says Mr. Adams keeps ducking him.
What? Yeah, sure I am. He's afraid. He just doesn't know it.
Oh, he's afraid.
This is actually the first I've heard about it. I've seen how the kind of condition that Dennis is in. I concede the game. I know the tummy I'm hiding under this table here, and I know he don't got that.
All right, there's challenge sort of accepted.
Conceded. Yeah, he won. It's all done. It's him.
There we go. He won. He won. Arthur.
I was actually, when I was a kid, which is I was not a sporty kid. I was the kid who stayed in and drew all the time. But occasionally, Mom said I had to go outside and play. So I shot up to about over 6 feet by the time I was 13 years old. So whenever it was time to pick teams, whenever I was meeting a bunch of new kids, when it was time to pick teams for basketball, I was always the first picked. By the time we got together for a second game, I was always the last picked.
Do you prefer drawing apes over people or people over apes? What an awesome question.
It is fun because it assumes that human beings aren't apes, and they are. However, I do like drawing gorillas a great deal.
You just gave away the ending of Planet of the Apes.
I don't think I did.
Way to spoil it for 5 people.
All right. Anyway, so I like drawing gorillas a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
Bitter experience has taught me that drawings of human beings sell better.
So this Monkey Man O'Brien was like that was beautiful for you, man. That was everything you ever wanted.
Almost. Yeah, I know. I really should have concentrated more on that. But I saw shiny colors and ran the other direction.
Hey, but we will get that collected edition sometime. Per Arthur Adams, he has spoken. This is a really good question. I always wondered this about artists, like whenever it comes to character design. But have you ever given a character a lot of detail and then regretted it midway through the issue?
Almost always. And usually not midway. It's usually pretty early on I realize these mistakes. I'm not smart enough not to make the mistakes, but I am smart enough to realize I've made them after it's too late.
So then by the time you get to the second issue of drawing the characters, do you ever curse past Arthur Adams as you're drawing? Like,
how many times have I drawn a second issue of anything?
Stop it. You have? That's a good answer.
It's actually pretty rare that I regret making it too complicated character. Mostly what I'm doing when I'm trying to draw characters and make them look different than other characters, which gets harder and harder, as you might imagine. So mostly the concentration is on trying to make them look different and at least unique. And sometimes that means having extra details, but mostly it's just trying to make things look unique and hopefully have a nice silhouette.
I think remember when this goes back to when I was looking at your art and I was like, oh my gosh, look at the details he's putting on his picture. And I'm talking just regular size panels. I'm not talking covers. Your covers are wonderful and they stand out. But my goodness, man, the amount of work and then you mentioned Terry Austin, and that's another thing that I love about him. One of my favorite inkers for that reason is that anybody he inks is phenomenal. I love his inks.
Totally, yeah.
Oh man. This is an interesting question. In comparison, working at Marvel and DC, what were your struggles you worked at those companies as an artist?
The main struggle is that I'm more of a Marvel guy, meaning I'm much more familiar. It's not like I'm lacking familiarity with the DC comics. I just have the Marvel characters were more part of my early youth. Like that's not that DC or not that that DC characters weren't a part. I mean, I loved the Adam West Batman TV show.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the George Reeve Superman show. I used to watch those all the time. I didn't really like the George Reeve TV series. I realized that it was a little bit limited for what Superman might be. But a Batman series when I was a kid was like huge for me. I used to, I was 3 or 4 running around the house with a towel wrapped around my neck and a Batman mask, singing the Batman song, right? The words are easy to remember, so it wasn't too bad. No. Yeah, you understand.
I got you.
Anyway,
yeah.
So
now we're gonna get demonetized because you just started singing that song perfectly.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It happens. It's okay. It was
Anyway,
worth it.
It was totally worth it. So basically, I have more of an emotional connection with the Marvel characters.
Mm-hmm.
So no real problems working at DC. Part of my joy, especially early on, and it's just my own brain that works this way. But it's often, or for me, it was more fun starting as Arthur Adams, the guy who's the new kid. It's more fun being that than it is being Arthur Adams, the guy who influences people. Because now I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And I don't.
Yeah, you're the guy that everybody is getting your style.
When I'm doing a new project in either Marvel or DC, like when I was doing those Authorities, when I agreed to do them, then DC said, "Oh, well, wait a minute, hold off. We're going to hold off on printing these so we can re-advertise these, so we can say it's being drawn by the legendary Arthur Adams." I was like, "No, if they're done by the legendary Arthur Adams, they have to be good. If they're done by Arthur Adams, they can just be okay."
Legendary Arthur Adams. I like it.
So I don't want to be. You know, for every project, I don't want it to be introduced as. So, like, I have a theory on how, I want to say how people buy comics, but it's how I buy comics and how I always have. If a comic, when I was a kid, and I think it's true for my daughter now, 10, if you say a comic like a Marvel comic is meant to be a kid's comic, kids don't want that comic.
Right. Why would
Kid's comic is meant for the parents to buy for the kid, and the kid's going to go, "God damn it, mom or dad bought me a kid's comic, and I don't want that. I want the regular comic." Also, even when I was younger, and I would see someone was coming back to draw something, like some guy who was an amazingly influential artist from the 50s or 60s is coming back to draw something in the 70s or 80s. I was like, well, this better be damn good. Oh, it's just basically okay. It's fine. So I think the way you advertise books, they give them a weight that they don't necessarily either deserve or are appreciated by the buying customers, right? Like people who were crazy about buying my artwork in the 80s or the 90s, like they might be excited that I'm doing a book, but a new kid who comes along and picks it up is like, I don't see what the big deal is. So immediately, the impression is, oh, well, that's not that's not all it was advertised to be. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it does. It does. Let me see. We got some really good questions, and so I honestly didn't know about this. So
We'll find out if I do.
Daniel is coming in late. Has Arthur spoken about his aborted All-Star Batman and Robin series that was eventually superseded by Miller and Lee's?
It's not so much that it was superseded. It was Jeff Loeb and I were originally going to be the immediate follow-up to Frank and Jim's.
Oh, okay.
It was All-Star Batman and Robin. And so that's the deal we came in to do. That's what we were excited to do. And I'd drawn the first, not all of it, but like about the first half of the first issue. But I was super intimidated. So it's wildly overworked. You can look for it online. It's available to see, the pencils. Mm-hmm. It would have been a super fun book to do. I was putting way too much pressure on myself for that first issue, and DC kept making it easy to put too much pressure on myself because, as I said, it was originally Frank and Jim were going to do issues 1 through 6, and then Jeff and I were going to do issues 7 through 12. So I was super excited about that, to follow up on those guys because those are good coattails to follow on, right? But they kept on having issues. They kept on having issues with their deadlines, and also they kept saying, well, we're having fun doing it, so we're going to keep extending it, which was fine because I was having a tough time getting the first issue done. Mm-hmm. So I was like, extra time, like, I'm good. That's fine. So basically, Jeff, who had been working at DC, got offered a really great job at Marvel. And he went to Marvel and they said, okay, we want you to do this job. And he said, okay, but the only way I can do it is if I can finish this job with Arthur at DC and this other job with another artist. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who it was, but he had 2 projects going at DC. And he said, the only way I'll take this job at Marvel is if I can finish these 2 projects at DC. And Marvel was like, well, we don't like that, but okay, good. That's fine. That's what it takes to get you. We're good because Jeff's a great person to have involved in your projects.
Yeah.
So Jeff, made his deal at Marvel and went over to DC and said, hey, this is what's going on, but hey, good news, I can finish these 2 projects. And DC was like, no, we don't want that.
Really?
And so that's so basically it would have gotten done if I hadn't taken so long doing it. I mean, DC wanted me to finish it. DC said, we'll get a new writer. It's like, the only reason I took this job was to work with Jeff. And granted, I love Batman. Batman's a huge childhood character for me. So, that's kind of a itch I've not scratched super thoroughly and probably won't I mean, I've done plenty of Batman covers and stuff since that one issue. I've done a few, and maybe in the future I'll do more. But I took that job to work with Jeff. So when they were like saying, well, we can get someone else to finish the project, I was like, no, I'm not really interested in that. That's basically it. I took too long doing the first issue, and I don't know that Frank and Jim ever finished their story.
No.
So I guess it's not too late still.
I mean, you guys totally could. Yeah.
I can totally finish it up now. But, Frank and Jim have to finish first.
At this point, I don't even know if people well, I don't know. It's still, it is one of the.
It was an odd one. It was an odd idea for a line from. I mean, DC's kind of played with that kind of thing for a long time, where it was almost like going to be the ultimate universe for DC, but then it wasn't, because it was going to kind of bounce around from different artists. So it was going to be kind of like I can't remember what that other Batman book was, where they had different artists come in. Different artists.
Noir? Was it Batman Noir or Europa?
No. It was even before that. It wasn't Untold Tales of Batman, but it was some weird Elseworlds book where basically each new team was doing their version of stuff, and that's kind of what All Star turned into. And I think it had originally intended to be the ultimate universe for DC Comics. I mean, their starting out book, they're with Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly, their Superman book was brilliant. It was one of my favorite Superman books. So I was super looking forward to the Batman being involved in that in some tiny tangential way on the Batman book, and it just fell apart.
Man. All right. Got it. Some good questions over here. Which one to pick? Okay, Arthur. What is your favorite Dynamite heroine to draw? Maybe I can.
Yeah, are you?
So we got Red Sonja, maybe.
Oh, Dynamite is in the comic book company. You said Dynamite. I
say it like that.
I went directly to Dino. Was it Electro Woman and Dyna Girl? Why? That's just must be my brain malfunctioning. So I'm going to say Electro Woman and Dyna Girl.
Would it be Red Sonja, I assume?
It would probably be Red Sonja. I like Deja Thoris a great deal. I don't know who else they have.
Got Vampirella. That's a popular one.
Vampirella, you know what? I've always liked. I can't say I've always liked Vampirella. Like there was who's the artist, the really famous, really popular artist who did like early issues. Can't think of his name at the moment, but he's brilliant artist. Really, no one has drawn Vampirella, I think, as well as those that. Not the first guy. I think it was the second guy who drew Vampirella. Mm-hmm. No one has ever drawn her as well, with the right proportions, the right face, the right hair. He just had the perfect style for it. So I've never really done a drawing of Vampirella that I was super happy with.
Yeah.
I mean, her costume is just so ridiculous. She's insane, and I know lots of other writers and artists have done great work with her. I'm just not familiar with it.
Jose Gonzalez.
That's probably who I'm thinking of, although I thought it was someone else. I think it was, but that could be him. And it was fantastic. There was the first dude, and there was another guy who came up behind him who was very good. He wasn't quite as good as that first guy, though. And I've not really been crazy about anyone else's since. But that's also partly. I mean, that's partly how I think about collecting and how much what comics we enjoy. It's kind of the things that we were exposed to early. That's the version that was good. So when we were talking earlier about like the first thing you saw, I don't know if that's the one you prefer, mm-hmm. but I've certainly met lots of people who like the first book they saw of mine, that's their favorite book, no matter what my opinion of it might be. So some people, their favorite book is New Mutants Special. Some is Long Shot. Some is that Action Annual. Some people, their first time they saw me was on Monkey Man O'Brien or on The Creature from the Black Lagoon. And those are the best things they've ever seen, right? So I think that there's something to do with our first experiences with some characters.
That is true. I do like that Action Annual #1, but I hold a very special place in my heart for
it's part of the time in your life, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and the X-Men annuals. I remember annual number 10. I couldn't find anywhere. I had to go and
I've heard that.
Wait 3 years to find it, and I finally found it. Thanks a lot, Arthur.
It's funny. It's about because I don't know if they were doing. They must have been doing second printings then, because it was pretty amazing when I was doing the Fantastic Four, and they ended up printing a bunch extra. I think the only the third issue was they had the numbers right, but I know they went back to press for I think 3 times for the first issue and maybe 3 times for the second. I'm not sure. It might have been 2 for the second, but I think it was 3. So I think on the third issue they finally got the orders right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I told you, I followed your work. You were I had a box. Like it wasn't a huge box, but it was a box,
No,
right?
it couldn't have been. Yeah.
You know, you did 2 issues and then no, but you did do a lot of I for an artist that had
Long Shot and 5 issues of Ultimate X and 1 issue of X Factor. Did multiple X-Men annual, but none of those are in a row.
2 issues of X Factor, sir.
No, just 1 issue of X Factor. Oh, 2 issues. You're right. I only did a cover for one of them. You're right.
Arthur Adams said I was right. It's almost as good as my wife saying I'm right, which never happens. If you could, oh man, there's so many good questions. Thank you all don't forget to hit that like button and go and check out our Arthur Adams. He's got an Indiegogo cover here with Red Sonja, one of his favorite characters. The link is in the description of the video. But who is your favorite hero design that you've designed?
Oh, that I've designed. Oh gosh, it's. I don't really know. The Monkey Man and O'Brien, they keep changing their clothes because I've not been happy with. I think I like them best in regular street clothes. I don't really like. I tried to give them superhero outfits, and I didn't really care for that. Ultimately, I think Longshot's outfit is pretty good. I want to say it's basic, and it is. It's black, but it's got a lot going on. But I think it was also kind of an influential kind of costume. It's not like I'm the first guy who drew people with pouches. It seemed like there was a lot of people with pouches after Longshot. So Longshot, maybe. I think Mojo's a pretty good looking character.
Yeah, that's a good design. Gross.
I think Mojo's pretty good. I think I like Spiral changing her clothes because she's got the 6 arms. She's already got a unique silhouette, so I think she's a character that can change costumes a little bit more. And it's not like I made up a 6-armed woman. That someone else had made that up before. I like Johnny Future's. I like drawing Johnny Future, but she's a bit of a pain. Her costume's pretty complicated. I can't think of too many characters. I've not really made up a ton of characters.
It feels like you have, though. I don't know. I'll tell you what you did. That I always say, man, I really like his character designs. Right. You designed the costumes for the New Mutants, like when they grew up. Yeah, exactly.
The X-Men, yeah.
So I thought that was
at
really
least
cool.
One of those is ripped off from a G.I. Joe toy.
Well, we're not going to talk about that helmet. Was it? Was a kid?
Good toy. I still have that one around somewhere.
Was Longshot's mullet based on your hair at the time? That's a good question.
It was not. It was. There was a singer whose name I never remember, but it was a short-lived band called La Caja Gugu.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead singer had hair very similar to that. When I was sitting down to design Longshot, I took one page, so like 10 by 15. It wasn't that big, but I drew lots of small heads on it, and I drew, I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40 different heads where I drew just characters' hair. I drew Superman's hair, drew Spider-Man's hair, I drew all the various superheroes' hair, Conan, and no one had that hair. I was like, okay, this will make him unique if he has this currently popular hair. And it was on MTV, and it was in the early 80s. So that's going to be popular forever, right?
That's the Yet Too Shy band, right?
Yes, that's the fella. Yeah,
that's people are asking. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's him. So yeah, it's from him. I never quite had a mullet. I was never a business in the front and party in the back. I had a lot of feathering, though. I had much more of a Dorothy Hamill sort of a haircut than a mullet. Yeah.
Have you ever drawn Nightwing? I can't remember seeing that before, but I'd love to see it. Good question from Daryl. That's my favorite DC character. Have you drawn Nightwing?
I think I might have drawn him on a back cover for, was it DC Comics Presents? They were restarting that series, and I drew on the cover. The cover has Catwoman. It's not a good cover, but it's got Catwoman and Cyborg and one other character that I'm forgetting at the moment.
Was it Nightwing?
Don't think it was, but it could have been. But Nightwing, but it was the back cover was a whole bunch of characters, a bunch of characters that were coming up in future issues. So it was like 20 or 30 other characters, and I think Nightwing might have been one of them. But I mean, that hardly counts. You just draw one tiny drawing of a guy, right? So I'm gonna put that in the kind of no column, but I'm not absolutely sure about that.
I know you've drawn Blue Devil. Oh no, I'm sorry. David's saying Blue Devil was in that back cover.
Was he on the front cover as well?
I can't. I remember seeing a picture of.
He might have been on the front cover. I can't remember now, but no, I did draw Blue Devil. Yeah. And then there was 10 pages I drew of it was DC Infinity Armageddon or something like that.
2001, Armageddon 2001,
2000 or Armageddon 2000 maybe.
2000.
It might be it. And that was done by a bunch of different artists, and I think I ended up drawing 10 pages that were spread around over 3 or 4 issues. I don't think he was in that. I think he just had the writer. Was it John Ostrander? I think so, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. Asked just to name 8 or 10 characters I wanted to draw, and he was not one of them.
Art, do you have a favorite convention or conventional sketchbook that you've done? And figure drawing isn't saying, I hope my question makes sense.
Do I have a favorite single sketchbook that I've done? Probably not. I like when we were doing them in the past, and each issue was kind of printed in chronological order, meaning in the order that they'd been drawn. The last several have been kind of best of, which is fine. I think the people who get them like them. I wouldn't say I have a favorite. No, I think the one that we did for 2018 might have had my favorite cover. But that's about all I can. That's. So I would have to say no. I don't have a favorite one of those. I like that we can do them. I did a small one, which I kind of liked. But partly one of the main things I liked about that was the logistical element of it, and that I charged the same amount, but I could carry a lot more of them.
I think the one that I saw was a picture of Supergirl that somebody had commissioned. Supergirl and Batgirl, I think.
Oh yeah. So that was one of the early ones, I think.
Yeah, that thing was amazing. But I mean, honestly, your art has always been amazing. Thank you. Was it fun?
Composite Supergirl, Batgirl.
That's it. Yes.
Inspired by the old composite Superman, Batman.
And how fun was it to draw yourself in that the Arthur Adams creature features?
It's weird to get paid to draw yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I mean, it was one of those ones where the whole point of it was that it was it Art Adams Creature Features? I think that's what it was called.
That's what it was called.
So I kind of felt I had to be on there somewhere. I don't know why. It seems like the book would have been fun.
Dude, you're in the center.
I am in the center because they're reprinting. I think it had a Monkey Man short story.
Yeah, it did.
And then it had Holy Issue of Godzilla, and then the Creature from the Black Lagoon adaptation. And it's this is already a weird cover. Why not? I think I was wearing that shirt a lot at that time too. I might have lived in Portland then.
All right, we're going to take a couple more questions. We need him to draw Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, as the movie.
So I did a cover, one of the variant covers for the first issue. I wasn't crazy with the way it came out. I was being influenced from too many sources, and it didn't quite work out. And also, my favorite Shang-Chi is original style Shang-Chi. So they keep redesigning him, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. They had I drew him on a couple of Avengers covers where they had him basically in kind of the Bruce Lee tracksuit, but instead of coloring it yellow, they colored it red. And I think I might have liked that. Maybe like that a little bit better than the more recent costume. I don't know, man, but I like the original version better. But as I was saying, that's for me. Shang-Chi is the first version I saw
because that's the first one, right?
Yeah.
What character would you like to work on that you've never worked on before? I think we talked a little bit about this because you said you drew about everybody. Was it Nightwing? Nightwing, maybe?
Well, someone wants me to draw a Nightwing.
Yeah, that was
I don't need. I personally don't need to draw Nightwing.
Well, it would be nice if you did. That would be great.
Nice guy. He's fine, and I like I've liked lots of the work that various writers and artists have done with the character. It's just and I like the character just fine. It's just not high on my to-do list. When I was younger, when I was first thinking about being in comics, I mean, one of my favorite comics was Conan. But I've never drawn a Conan for myself that I've thought was particularly good. And it's partly when I was saying a little while ago about warring different influences. Like I love John Buscema inked by Alfredo Alcala. I think those are some of my favorite comics. They're beautiful. But I also love Barry Smith's Conan. And they're kind of not the same guy. They're hard to put together, and I think like my favorite comic book Conan, as it was done, was probably the few times that Gil Kane drew Conan, and he was inked by Neil Adams, so he had the right haircut.
Yeah, that's right.
He had the exact right haircut, and he kind of had the right physique, and kind of the right face. He wasn't quite the really smashed Buscema face. But not quite the pretty Windsor Smith face, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of like somewhere in between there. And I think that was probably my favorite Conan, but I've never drawn a Conan for myself that I thought was particularly good.
You're really hard on yourself.
I know.
You know, like you never meet anybody at a convention that was like, "Here, sign this. Your artwork sucks." Right?
I've not had that. But I was at a show in Europe, and these were great questions. This is the guy who was asking the questions was, at least to me, seemed to be kind of on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't necessarily aware that he was asking questions in a way that weren't nice.
Right.
He intended to be nice, but that was not. And it was all fine. I had a fine experience with him, but his two questions to me for him to film were, what's it like having been very popular in the past? Do you work hard to try to re-achieve that?
Okay.
Like, I don't, but thank you. I mean, I just did the best work I could then, and I do the best work I can now. That's what I'm going for. And his second question was, when they hire you to do covers nowadays, do you think they're asking you because they want things to look old-fashioned? It was like, I just draw the way I draw. If that's what they're going for, that's not what they've told me.
It could be a language barrier too. Maybe like.
No, it was Europe, so everyone speaks 5 languages. Great.
I was trying.
It wasn't here in the U.S.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I get old-fashioned. I think maybe he meant classic and just translated as old-fashioned.
It was totally fine. I was not in any way offended. I was just amused. And again, I do not believe he would ask these questions in an unkind way. I think those were genuinely the questions that had occurred to him to ask me while he was there, to ask all these, because it was a convention. So he was asking a lot of different artists, a lot of other questions.
I am so glad that you brought up John Buscema and Conan. And, oh man, that's some of my favorite art that he did. That Conan that he did, and Sony Trinidad, and all those inkers that worked with him just made that character so awesome.
No, it was so good, and I loved those so much. Though it was actually. And so it's something that I try to keep in mind for myself and try to keep it out of myself. It was that just reading interviews with Buscema and talking to other people who knew him, and that he loved working on Conan, but he hated drawing superheroes. And I was like, that's so disappointing, because he draws them great, number one, and I love them. So it kind of takes away a little bit of the joy that that he hated working on them. And I have trouble believing that's 100% true. I don't know that wasn't just a personality thing. I mean, there's some people that think that if you talk up your own work, you're kind of an asshole. And I'm kind of in that universe. That's not cool. That's not the only reason I'm hard on myself, but I also don't like, I think self-praise. There's very few artists who can praise themselves. And I will say, yeah, you're right. Because basically, if someone who praises themselves, I can look at their work and go, yeah, I don't know about that. But like the only artist I've ever heard say that they were a really great artist was Frazetta. And I was like, yeah, I'm giving you that one. You're Frazetta. Yeah, you can say you're great. I'm not. I have no argument against that.
He gets a pass.
He totally gets a pass because he's actually genuinely great. But like other artists, I can say, you say you're great, and all this page is good, but look at this foot. That's not a good foot.
Or any of them Arthur Adams clones?
No, it's very rare to have someone come. If someone comes by to tell you that their work is really good, they almost are. Almost anybody could recognize they're not good.
Okay.
Yeah. No one who's any good goes around doing anything like that.
So to answer Derek's question, has anyone asked about the Monkey Man O'Brien? Will he get an oversized hardcover release, or if new material is coming out? Arthur Adams.
We're kind of working on it. It's in the works. It's in the air. And
by we, he means him and I. We're gonna do that after we do the Nightwing series.
Well, I mean, mostly Omar's doing it.
I will sew it together myself. I love those stories, and we do need that collected because those trade paperbacks have been long gone, man. All right. And at this moment, I just want to thank you so much for joining us, sir. It was.
Oh, did I do something? This seems like we're wrapping it up kind of abruptly. I feel like I've hurt someone's feelings or something. What's happening?
No,
it's fine.
I see you moving your chicken around, so you were getting hungry, and I was like, you haven't had a bite to eat since we started talking. I thought you could sneak one in while we showed off some of your artwork, but it was the whole Nightwing thing, man. That's what it was. Yeah, that you hurt the feelings of the viewers.
It's that one guy's fault. That one guy or young lady. I don't know whether it was a man or a woman now, but
you can even bring Nightwing like his mullet back. You know, those are making a comeback.
You mean for myself? No, I'm bald now. It would just be. I would look like the Ratfink or whatever from Rocky Horror.
No. You would rock it. I meant Nightwing. Like, give him a mullet back.
Oh. All right. I'm still not going to do that, but
okay.
I don't know why you want me to draw Nightwing to look like a Ratfink. That's really weird.
He's older now, you know, and then that's true. That's where I was going. So, like, old man Nightwing. You know, I don't know if you've heard of that concept or not. Like,
Nightwing Boy. That's the one I'm going to do.
I think he is the sidekick, right? So that wouldn't work.
That's what makes it different.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So
thank you, Omar. I appreciate you having me.
No, sir. Thank you. This was a blast. You are welcome to come back anytime you want to. And thank you to Vincent Faust for putting all this together for us. He was a great guy. And just to remind everybody.
He could be better, couldn't he?
Oh, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's a Nightwing fan. So I judge people by the kind of fandom they follow. So
that's extremely shallow. I like it.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm a good artist, okay? I would never say praise my artwork. Never. So click the link in the description of the video to take you to that Indiegogo that has Arthur's phenomenal Red Sonja artwork. And I think it's got 9 more days for a Kickstarter. Hopefully we'll hear some news. You know what? Here's the thing. Here's you when you announce the Monkey Man O'Brien oversized hardcover collection, you come back to the show. I would love to talk to you about that.
All right, and I'll let you know how my one-on-one with Dennis went.
Dennis
Cowan.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right.
I thought you said that you were forfeiting, right? I thought it was forfeiting.
I'm forfeiting for now, but I think I'm ready for a comeback. Okay. I don't know how you come back from forfeiting, but you know,
you're a good sport. I will say that.
That's what I think too.
Here is a really good, important question. Where do we get commission work done from Arthur Adams?
basically impossible at this point in time. I am swamped. The only place you can get any sort of drawing from me is if I show up at a convention, and then I'll take a short list to do little drawings at the show. But that is about all I have time for these days. I have so much work, and I'd like to see my family occasionally.
You're a good man. You're a good man. You want to see your family. Keith said you were ducking him. You were ducking Dennis. That's true. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And again, big thank you to Arthur for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Omar.
Absolutely. Everyone have a great day.